Head of Partnerships, and part of the top management team at Center. They will be sharing their expertise, stories, and unique perspectives. We hope to create an atmosphere of knowledge exchange and inspiration for you. Our guests are not only pioneers and pathbreakers in their field, but they've also made a profound impact in the domain of education through their contributions. Mrs. Maya Menon is founder director at the Teacher Foundation, and TTF works with schools, principals, school administrators, teachers, and teacher educators in the areas of school development and improvement. She has conceptualized, designed, and implemented the Wipro Applying Thought in Schools Teacher Empowerment Project, the Safe and Sensitive Schools Initiative, and developed the Indian Social and Emotional Learning Framework, ISEL, the only researched and contextualized SEL framework existing in India. Welcome to you, Mrs. Menon. We are looking forward to this talk with you.
Welcome, ma'am. Rahul is the head of partnerships and part of the top management team of Centa, one of the world's largest professional platforms for teachers based out of India, working to make teaching aspirational. A certification trademark in India, it benchmarked against several global standards. Centa works with millions of teachers on certification of competencies, upskilling, and career growth. Under Rahul's leadership, Center has built a wide range of partnerships ranging from central government bodies like CBSE to thousands of private schools across the country. Prior to joining Center, to follow his passion for education, Rahul traded financial derivatives on all major international exchanges. He is a two-time startup founder with ventures ranging from fintech to fresh produce. He also headed expansion for Uber all across India. Keen to use the power of education for upward mobility, he even ran a school for children of migrant laborers on the footpaths of Gurgaon. I welcome you, sir, tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you, sir. Now, we move on to the question answer session with our guests.
Mrs. Maya Menon, our first question is for you. The teaching learning space is about relationships. I've heard you say this many times. How does this manifest? How does this look like for the teacher and the student?
Thank you for that question. I think it's a question that's really close to my heart. Teaching is indeed a relationship business. The interpersonal relationship between the teacher and students is really vital for fostering the learning process in students. Positive relationships with the adult teacher, the adult in the classroom who is the teacher, helps a student develop socially, emotionally, and cognitively. But of course, I also want to talk about a persisting relationship in our schools in India. And I say particularly India because I haven't seen it so much in other parts of the world when I go into classrooms. And I have been to classrooms in the Middle East, and I've been to in Singapore and Sri Lanka. And I want to quote Professor Krishna Kumar here. He used to be the former director of NCERT, as well as he was a professor of education at Delhi University's Central Institute of Education. And he, in his one of his wonderful erudite books, he talks about at the heart of pedagogic relationship in our schools lies the Brahmanical ideal of teachers' moral authority. The teacher is supposed to possess the knowledge which he or she should transfer to students. And there's also this whole thing of the child's need to be treated as an individual remains a foreign idea in our classrooms. And I say it in a very deliberate way and with great intent, because the school teacher in our schools tends to continue to perform an age-old function that which tends to be of that I'm right, the child is usually wrong. Of course, mind you, it is changing. It is changing in at least in our urban schools, but it's still not a rapid change. And the teacher still feels that I have to be in charge. I have to, and this often ends up in subduing curiosity and questioning. So what are the manifestations of this kind of a traditional teacher-student relationship that exists even today in 21st century Indian schools, even our good high-end schools? Recently, a well-intentioned teacher jokingly called a grade 9 boy who's shorter than the average 14-year-old in his class, "Oi Chotu, you stand in front." Now that doesn't necessarily contribute to a positive, nurturing relationship. A few years ago, when we were working with schools and we were surveying students in a Bangalore school, a child said, a grade 7 or 8 standard student said, "I don't remember when I got praised." At the same time, another school in another classroom, another student of grade 3 or 4 said, "When somebody does something to me, I try to tell the teacher, but she never listens. So I do something to that person being another classmate, and I get scolded. And I'm then sent to HM ma'am, and I feel like crying." Now, I could come up with hundreds of examples like this, but why does this happen? I don't want to take too much of your time, but why does this happen? Why are relationships in schools between teachers and students a bit frayed? And why do these relationships have to be confrontational? I think it's good for us to, I want to show you a couple of slides. Rest of my thing, I don't have any slides, but I want to show some slides to make a point. I hope you can see the full screen, hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah. So here's a model for interpersonal teacher behavior, which is research from the West, from Netherlands particularly. It's a longitudinal research, but I think it's relevant for us too. If you look at this x-axis and y-axis, on the x-axis you have influence, and on the y-axis you have proximity. And at one end of influence is dominance on the part of the teacher. Another is submission on the part of the teacher. And on the x-axis, at one end is opposition. That means the teacher is oppositional towards the students. And at the other end, the teacher is cooperative towards the students. Now, obviously, ideally, we would like to have teachers preferably on the right-hand side, not on the left-hand side. If you look at the left-hand side, a strict teacher who's dominant, a teacher who's dominant is strict, could be admonishing constantly if it's more oppositional, could be constantly dissatisfied if the teacher is more submissive, or the teacher is uncertain. Now, none of these are particularly sort of positive. Now, if you look at the right-hand side, a teacher who may be submissive but is cooperative in her whole approach towards children would provide students more responsibility, more freedom. A teacher would be more understanding. A teacher would be helpful and friendly, and a teacher could assert themselves a little with demonstrating some leadership. Obviously, the right-hand side is more positive and nurturing compared to the left-hand side. And we have to see, how do we help teachers move from the left to the right? And so what would positive teacher-student relationships look like? Teachers recognizing the rights of every child. I think that's really essential. And I think since India is a signatory of UNICEF's rights of children, I think we need to be every teacher must be aware of the rights of every child, that children have the right to love, care, understanding, that teachers show their pleasure and enjoyment of being with students. Teachers interact in a responsive and respectful way, and teachers offer students both help in achieving academic as well as social emotional objectives. I think these are some of the things we have to be looking at. Teachers helping students reflect on their thinking and learning skills, teachers knowing and demonstrating knowledge about individual students' backgrounds, interests, emotional strengths, academic skills, and finally, teachers. And this is perhaps the most difficult because teaching is a hard profession. Teachers seldom show irritability or aggravation towards students. Teaching is hard, teaching is exhausting, and it's difficult for that last one, which is why teaching also requires you to be almost a superhuman. So how do we create a shift in our relationships? I think we need to be consciously looking at building a shared vision in the school of trust and respect for the child. Building in listening systems where children are listened to, where teachers are listened to, where children listen to each other, having open, authentic conversations with students, and of course, having opportunities to unwind for the teacher because the teacher needs to rejuvenate herself. So in that sense, it is a relational role that teachers perform. How do we create it? I will stop here because I think there will be other questions to ask. So over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. That was insightful, leaves us with a lot of things to reflect upon. And yes, the space as you defined it is one of mutual respect and honesty. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, my next question goes to Rahul, sir. In this competitive world of today, where students almost start to prepare towards their goal right from the middle school years, how would a teacher play a role in shaping their career?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question in the sense that it's a very here and now problem that's only increasing in its scope. I think we count ourselves lucky when we say that students start preparing from their middle years and not from the day they were born. And that's the dystopian future that we are moving towards, unfortunately. But I think, the very fast pace of change of the world today, and it's only getting faster. It puts a lot of demands on children from a very young age. The expectations are higher because, well, there are more resources, there are more tools available to them, there's more information available to them. I think apart from the traditional role of a teacher, which ensures that children learn the right concepts of subjects, the right morals, the right ethics. There are two things that I feel a teacher now has to do in addition. I think one of those is that they have to be regulators of balance, and the other is they have to be purveyors of perspective. So I think all this information out there for children uh, makes it very difficult for them to understand what to believe, what not to believe, how to um, process all that information. And that's where a teacher brings very, very strong perspective. Of course, it's a combination of all the various touch points of a child in terms of the parents at home or the caregivers at home. There's a lot of background noise. Am I the only one hearing that? There's some static. Sorry.
No, I'm hearing it also, Rahul.
Okay, never mind. Uh, so I was saying that you need a teacher to actually filter through all of that and give the child that perspective, which will help them figure out what the right way to move forward is. The other part of this, right. The other part of this is the first point I made about being regulators of balance. Yes, we all should be ambitious. There should be a lot of pushing forward on things that, yes, I want to achieve, I want to win, I want to succeed. But a very important aspect that is often unfortunately overlooked today is, well, just I want to grow up. I want to learn. I want to learn about the world and I want to learn about myself. And that is something that we see manifest itself in various ways: illnesses, lack of clarity later on in life. I think a teacher plays a very important role in helping build that from a much younger age, because a teacher, A, has the wherewithal to do it, and B, has the intent to do it, and that is how this helps shape themselves better.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful insights.
I will, we are I will ask the next question to Mrs. Maya Menon. Um, how do you foresee the future of the urban Indian school system?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball and things are changing so rapidly, but I foresee a lot of schools actually leapfrogging into the latter part of the century. But I also see a lot of schools in a stalemate situation, partly because there are many, our Indian schools are very, very hard entities and institutes in terms of change, bringing about change. So that's my short and sort of slightly rather frank answer. But one fear I have, based on what I see in schools, is the quick jumping onto the bandwagon. The bandwagon could be anything that's the latest gizmo. And today it is AI and Chat GPT. A few years ago, it was smart boards. Schools, of course, have to be adventurous. They need to be on the lookout for what's the latest on the horizon, which could actually influence and impact and improve teaching and learning. But they also need to be rational. Because lives are at stake, young lives are at stake. So we need to be clear about what do we want to prioritize in terms of students, their overall growth, development, and learning. So keeping the children at the heart of all decision making is important. And when I say children, children are a broad spectrum. It's not just children who are the very bright children or the very sporty children who are always sort of shining and on top, but there are also the quiet ones who sometimes may shine, who may be late bloomers and who shine years after they've left school. So we need to be considering all children in our schools. And I think one way of looking at it, especially for as far as future of the urban Indian school, and I would say future of Indian schools, is about teachers needing to be responsive to what is required of them and required for the child or the class on on any given situation, and also engagement, because the schools could boast of wonderful technology, wonderful infrastructure, but if children are not truly and rigorously engaged in the learning process, and learning process is both an emotional, social, emotional, as well as cognitive process. It's not only about devices and so on, or digital tools and so on. So I think two words to talk about the future of learning, which is actually engagement of children in the learning process, engagement in a very, very in a positive, happy, as well as rigorous, challenged manner, as well as responsiveness on the part of the teachers responding to what children need, teachers responding to what individual children need, teachers responding to what the curriculum requirements are, etc. So that's my response to you.
Thank you, ma'am. One sees, so what you're saying is schools in the future will embrace a lot of new things, but the importance of being cautious and keeping the child's need in mind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. My next question goes to Rahul sir. What is the difference between training, mentoring, and coaching? Can you give us some insights on this?
Thanks for the question, Shelly. I think this is a question I'm asked often, and I often say the same thing. It's a matter of semantics more than anything. The ultimate goal of each of these is to ensure a better output from the trainee, the coachee, or the mentee. A couple of points that I could think of maybe in any system, say. So training is much more, to my mind, it's like a professional course you undertake, right? So you could be in a teacher training program. So say, look, let's think of a school as an example. Teachers could be undergoing 3 month long, 6 month long, or even a day long training program, but they're very specific to certain skills or competencies that will help them build. Uh, on the other hand, mentoring could be much more informal, right? It could be, say, two teachers helping each other on various aspects of their teaching, right? Or a senior teacher doing that for I mean, I don't like using the word senior or junior, but a more experienced teacher doing that for somebody who's just joined. They could be a mentor to them. Coaching, again, I think is much more specific to any particular area that I want to develop quickly. Sport is a great example of coaches where they've got more of a team structure. And so coaching could typically happen either individually or in a team. So that is my broad idea of these three terms. But like I said, it's more a matter of semantics than the outcome.
Thank you so much, sir, for telling us such beautifully the difference between the three by giving us the examples as well. Thank you so much, sir.
Mrs. Maya Menon, the next one is also for you. I'd like to draw on your research and experience to ask you on behalf of all the learners in the audience how a learner might respectfully give constructive feedback to a teacher for a win-win outcome.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Partly because there's always a little bit of tentativeness on the part of schools, and also worry, understandable worry about if we ask students for feedback on teachers, they could be manipulative, and they could say all kinds of things about our teachers, and it doesn't look good. It's a very understandable concern, but I think it's important. It's necessary to ask the right question. The right question gives you great insights. If you ask students the right questions, you could identify with uncanny accuracy am I an effective teacher or am I not effective? Who are the teachers who are effective? Who are the teachers who are not so effective? However, the feedback must always be, I believe, in the control of the teacher in the classroom. The idea is not to disempower a teacher. So if the principal or the HOD or the coordinator asks for feedback from students, then it will seem the teacher feels completely disempowered and therefore worried about what are my students going to say. But if I am a teacher, if I'm going to ask my students, what did you like about today's class? What did you not like about today's class? What do you think I could have done differently? Then I'm in charge. But the students could give very, very honest feedback. And some other possible ways of seeking feedback could be, you could ask students questions like, what is the quality? What do you feel about the quality of relationships that I have with you as a class? That could be. Or what do you feel about the quality of relationship that I as a teacher encourage amongst all of you as students? That's another question you could ask. And some other questions could be, what did you like most about the way your classmates interacted with each other during geography class? What did you like most about the way your teachers interacted with you during the geography class? I'm just taking geography as an example. Or what did you least like what did you like least about the way the teacher or the students interacted in the geography class? What suggestions would you have to improve the interactions in the class? Or what suggestions would you have to improve the learning experience that you had in the class? So these are all different kinds of questions you can ask. We typically ask teachers to seek feedback in, asking three simple questions. What did you like about today's class? What did you learn in today's class? What did you like about today's class? What did you not like about today's class? But from these three questions, you get a lot of insights into my practice, what I did right, what I did wrong. And if the school wants to collate it, you could ask the teachers to say, okay, what did you learn from reflecting on the feedback that you got from the students? So that's another way of encouraging reflection on the part of teachers on the feedback that you get from students. And I think students, when they ask these sort of questions, then they will learn. It's not about liking a teacher because she tells a great joke, or it's not about liking a teacher because she's young and she's fun to be with. It is about what did you learn in today's class, and therefore what did you like about that class? I'm just going to stop there.
Thank you so much for not only explaining that so well. I'm sure it resonated both with the teacher and with the students in this audience, and not only that, but even going into specifics of the kind of questions that may be asked. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, ma'am. As a teacher, I would also be keen enough to incorporate in my teaching methodologies your valuable insights. Now, moving on to our next question on the same line, it is to Rahul sir. Like, while planning out the programs for teachers as a trainer, how do you organize the content for the individuals of varying
Sorry, I missed that last bit. I think there was again some static. So I
Okay.
think I heard you say when.
I repeat this question, sir.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Basically, while planning out the programs for teachers as a trainer, how do you organize the content for the individuals of varying levels?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm not a trainer, first of all, so a big disclaimer. But I've had the privilege, I still have the privilege of working with some fantastic trainers and content creators, designers, etc., being part of Centa. Uh, I think there are three or four broad factors that we consider. The most important, of course, is the experience level of the teacher, right, which is quite a big differentiator. The other is the function that they fulfill. And the third is context. So I'll just quickly delve into each of these. So I think in terms of experience, of course, at Centa, we broadly recommend three buckets where we say, okay, L1, L2, L3. L1 is a new teacher in the system, just out of their pre-teaching and into teaching for the first time. L2 is more of an experienced teacher, like 3 years odd, and L3 would be a senior teacher. Now, to put more color to this, at the start of their career, a teacher would typically be expected to follow a lesson plan, right? While uh, uh, addressing their class, and to give feedback on the lesson plan. So what worked, what didn't work, etc. Uh, as they move along their career, become more experienced, I think they can be expected to create lesson plans. So that becomes the natural evolution of a teacher as they move along. And I'm using lesson plan as one aspect of teaching, of one pedagogical aspect. Of course, the same applies to the others. And as they then move along their career further, so say around the 8-10 year mark, maybe. And again, these are very loose time frames. Uh, there you'd be expected to mentor or train others to create lesson plans. So that to me is the distinction between the training program. So when my training program is designed, I would ensure that I keep in mind what level that of experience the teacher is at. Now, having said this, of course, there'll be many programs that are agnostic of any of these factors, and they're the basics and fundamentals that every teacher should go through. But in certain aspects, you would have differentiation. So experience level is one. The other is function. Now, is your function mainly as a coordinator, as a teacher trainer, as a teacher only, or is it more in terms of saying that I am a specialist? And I think this idea of specialists is very useful today, right? As we've moved through the pandemic, etc., we've seen the rise of content creators among teachers very rapidly. Technology has ensured or forced us to pivot and add these skills. So there are many more specializations, so to say, in teaching today. You could be a specialized content creator, you could be a specialized lesson plan creator, or you could be specifically there for delivery or for student assessment, etc. And the training would then take that into account very strongly. And the last one, I think, is contextualization. So using a very, very basic example, a teacher in Nigeria, if they're reading a case study or a question or a situation that they have to analyze, if I'm using names like Abhishek, they might not be as familiar to the teacher as a name like John would be. So it's just a very basic semantic point, but we find that makes a big difference, because to delve into the unfamiliar and learn new skills, you do want to hang on to some familiarity. And that is the bridge that you create between what you already know and what you are now learning. So these three are the broad tenets, to my mind, for designing a training program based on differentiation for individuals.
Thank you so much, sir, for explaining us again very beautifully the different levels of teachers and the teaching programs you run for the teachers.
Sorry, Shelly, can I add one thing? I think it's
Yes,
quite
yes, yes. Please.
relevant. So sorry, speaking out of turn, but I think NEP is being implemented gradually now, right? NEP 2020, the new education policy, and the NPST, which is the National Teacher Competency Framework that has come up under the NEP, it espouses this exact same idea for teacher experience level, where it says, okay, this is the cadence we follow or we prescribe as a nation. Of course, it's up to individual systems in states, private sector, etc., to follow that. But this is a prescribed model, so to say, where you've got 3 levels of experience, and this is how you move through the gears, how you evolve through your teaching career. And naturally, the input went very strongly from the CENTA standards also, which has been around since 2015, and has been working on this exact same model of teacher career evolution. Having said that, we find teachers, rapidly moving through the gears, and by their 5th year, becoming absolute experts and training others. So no one's to say that you cannot rapidly move through it, but as a general principle, this is what we see working the best. Thank you, Shelly.
Thank you, sir.
Mrs. Menon, I'd like to ask you the next question. Please tell us a little about the iSelf program at the Teacher Foundation. I think our students here would love to know how this could transform the school environment and what it would mean for them.
Thanks. So iSelf is not a program. It's actually an age-banded resource that can be used by teachers, curriculum developers, and Department of Education, people from different governments, state governments, etc. It stands for the Indian Social Emotional Learning Framework. iSelf is actually a rigorously researched framework that took us 7 years to put together, 5 years of just gathering data from across the country in 10 different languages from 15 locations, north, south, east, west, northeast, and so on. And based on that, and looking at international research and international work on social emotional learning, we put together this age-banded resource. In our country, before iSelf, there was no resource that informed teachers, parents, governments, CBSE perhaps, etc. What are the expected social emotional learning outcomes we need to nurture in school-going children? So it's more a resource for adults, I would say. It's great if young people, students are interested in looking at it. If you want to improve your own social emotional skills, which is important, absolutely. You can look at iSelf also. And it's a free resource available on our website. Interestingly, Harvard University's EASL labs, EASL stands for EASEL, Ecological Approaches for Social Emotional Learning. So Harvard's EASL labs actually maps all the SEL and life skills frameworks from across the world. And iSelf was also mapped and compared with other SEL and life skills frameworks from across the world. It was found to have the most depth of focus in terms of fostering SEL skills. So I think that was, quite interesting for us. I'll put it on chat in case you want to look at that link also. But so iSelf is actually a resource for teachers, curriculum developers, if they're looking at developing a curriculum for developing social emotional learning skills for children. And I think it is increasingly important, particularly post-pandemic, looking at fostering the affective aspects of children's growth and development, because a lot of times social emotional learning needs to take precedence over aspects of academic development, because a lot of times if a child is happy, adjusted, balanced as a person, he or she learns so much better than a child who's constantly fretting, stressed out, feeling unacknowledged, and anonymous, then a child does feel as if what he or she learns doesn't matter. So I think children's well-being is vital, and ISELF helps teachers to foster, and parents to foster children's well-being. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, my next question goes to Rahul sir again. How do these teacher training programs provide a futuristic quality education to the Gen Z?
Thank you for that question. Whenever I hear Gen Z, I feel very old. But and like truthfully so. So I think okay, teacher training programs, future quality education. Right. So I think this is true for any system, right? I mean, when a system wants to improve or wants to keep up with change, right? So one is to do better what you were doing earlier, and the second is to embrace like newer things that you need to learn. The first one is, yes, we keep working on various academic concepts, pedagogical concepts, etc. We keep doing that better. Some subjects might be added, different dimensions. But I think the second point becomes much more important. And going back to what Maya also just mentioned in terms of like the social emotional learning, I think the way to move forward is to go back and to check, okay, how the child is feeling before you can actually make them learn better. So the pillars of education will not really change dramatically to my mind. Subject expertise will always remain critical. You need the child to know the subject, to know the concepts, the facts, figures, all of that. But the softer elements, so to say, they need much more focus, and so I used to be a derivatives trader, and it was never about the technical aspect of the market that mattered so much as your own softer skills did. So do you have the grit, do you have the perseverance, etc., to stay in the market, to have that confidence? And all of that is tied so strongly in the growing up years for a child into SEL. So I think concepts like sensitivity, positive reinforcement, etc., they become more and more important in this. Again, I keep using this term, in this rapidly fast-paced world. So this is what I feel helps create market readiness for students. Yes, we want to create a very highly productive workforce that is job ready in a changing market, but we start with things that we've not focused so much on, the newer concepts. So again, going back to the center standards, and why I do that again is a teacher that teaches best is a teacher that learns the best. So I feel that whole idea of a teacher also constantly evolving, keeping pace with the level of change that is required to teach these concepts to children becomes very important. At Centa, we always say that, okay, let's flip the coin. A teacher wants a child to learn every day. Let a teacher learn every day. So we've got a very simple app where a teacher goes and spends 5 minutes per day to learn and to stay in touch with the idea of learning. And only when a teacher does that on a regular basis does it become digestible. Otherwise, you can't expect an adult to suddenly learn a mountain of new things. So do that as a daily simple practice, and it'll help you stay in touch so that you can pass on more relevant information in the right manner to your students. So those are some of my thoughts around how we can use teacher training programs to provide a futuristic quality of education to Gen Z.
Thank you so much, sir, for
Can I
giving
just
us
add
wonderful.
to what
Yes.
Rahul said?
Please, please.
Since teacher training is so much my bread and butter, so to speak, I just want to say, I think a lot of times we need to remember, and I say it with compassion, I say it with humility. All of us as teachers, because I was a teacher for many years also, I think we teach the way we have been taught, and a lot of us, or majority of us, have not been taught in using contemporary methods. We've gone through the rote-based, exam-oriented methods, and unless we have experienced a different kind of learning ourselves, it's very difficult for us to replicate that in the classroom, which is why any training for teachers has to give them an opportunity to experience a different kind of learning. Think about it. How did I learn it? How did I make sense of it? Does this make sense? And so on. And then she or he can actually replicate it in the classroom. So there's a lot of research which says teachers teach the way they've been taught. And if you have to change the way teachers teach, we have to change the way they are learning themselves. It's exactly what Rahul was also saying, that teachers need to be learning regularly. Yeah.
Yes, yes, ma'am. We do agree with your insights too. That yes, we definitely, as teachers, we have to go and think out of the box and think some innovative ideas to implement and make our teachings much more better. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Is it Susan's turn?
Yeah. Susan,
Sorry,
ma'am?
can't hear anybody.
Sorry,
Susan, ma'am?
no. Our students will be getting ready to fire their rapid fire questions at you at this time.
Susan, ma'am, before we move on for the rapid fire question, there's a quick question for Rahul, sir. Can we move on for that, Rahul, sir?
I get a bonus, sure.
Yeah, you might. Yeah. So, sir, you have had a successful run-off program on sustainable development recently in Hyderabad. And in connection to that, I would like to ask that how the education today can help in transforming the schools and students for a sustainable future.
Thank you for that question. I think it's a problem that the whole world is trying to solve. I mean, we know that education is the sharpest tool, the most needed tool that we have. But how to use it for a better world, to get to create a more sustainable world? How do you get the values down to the last person? I feel, I mean, and by the way, we at Center strongly believe in a very market-driven economy, a very market-driven way of doing things, one that ensures higher rewards, incentivize better quality, better performance. And I believe this is true for all aspects of an education system. So when I look at all the stakeholders, uh, well, we have the management or the owners of a school who want a better name for the school. They want to be known for spreading good education, quality of education, etc. When we look at students, well, that is a no-brainer. Student, uh, even if they don't want to, they'll be pushed into wanting better careers, etc. Right? So there's a very clear incentive for students. Parents, of course, want their kids to do better. And again, I keep coming back to teacher because and that's what we work with. I mean, that's what we work for at Center. We feel that teaching is not aspirational enough yet as a profession, and that is one stakeholder in the system that needs much more attention. So when teaching becomes aspirational, you can have the right message sent across. I completely agree with Maya in what she just mentioned about the way you learn is the way you teach. We feel we all lifelong learners. I mean, you can learn anything given the right set of incentives. In school, we learn because there were incentives, right? As students, and as we keep growing, as teachers, also as adults, we need incentive to keep moving. I think given the right incentives, we can create the right environment for all these stakeholders to be more harmonious in how they interact with each other. So I feel that execution can happen here, right? At the level of schools, individual schools, etc. Of course, it has to be backed by very strong planning, and planning that is also forward looking. So the central governments, etc., the central government bodies need to have the right level of planning with all the factors taken into consideration and incentivize well enough on the ground for it to be executed. Of course, you have to incentivize all parts of this puzzle, and that's how I feel that true transformation or reform can come with all these firing on all cylinders.
I do agree with you, sir, definitely. And joining the dots and puzzles, like joining in all the things together, definitely will transform the teacher and the teaching methodologies, definitely. Now we have completed the questionnaire round, and some of our students are keen to throw a rapid fire round with our guests. And I'm sure even you too are going to enjoy interacting them. So over to you, Abhiroop.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Abhiroop Chanda, and today we have the pleasure of diving into a rapid fire round with the dynamic Miss Maya Menon ma'am, where quick wit meets insightful responses. Let the questions roll, and let's get to know her well in the fast lane. So, ma'am, are you ready?
I hope I am.
All right. My first question to you is, what were your beliefs and opinions that enabled you to create an extensive organization for teachers?
I was and I still am fueled by strong desire to energize teachers and teaching. All the and also it was also a very intuitive decision. All the big decisions in my life have been taken by an intuitive sense of what I thought was right for me at that point of time. And it's worked for me very well by and large. And I think what we do at the Teacher Foundation is vital because we work in the classroom with the teacher, we work outside the classroom with the teacher. So we breathe, for us, every day is a teacher's day, in a sense. That's my short.
That,
It's a rapid fire, so I better not talk more than that.
that was indeed an inspiring and captivating answer. Next on the list, I've got an interesting one for you. What are some assumptions that students make about teachers that obstructs a free exchange of ideas?
Actually, I don't think students really make assumptions, especially in the younger classes. They just respond to the person the teacher projects in the class. If the teacher is willing to reach out, is interesting, students assume that this is an interesting teacher, I can learn from him or her. So I don't think it's assumptions from the teachers. I think it's more in terms of assumptions from the students. There's more assumptions from the teacher that could influence what's happening in the classroom.
That was an eye-opener. We will definitely remember that. So my next question is, what enabled you to become a teacher first, then a trainer?
As I said, I just sort of, I stumbled into teaching as a profession. So I wasn't intending to be a teacher, certainly not a teacher for life, way back, long time ago, many decades ago in Delhi. But once I worked as a teacher, I loved working with children, and I realized that I'd found my niche in this world and in this life. And then I moved out of teaching. I was working in an organization that I was working in schools, newspaper and education. Mrs. Manila Karwala knows of that very well because I was with the Times of India. I set up the newspaper and education program for the Times of India in Bangalore. And that's when I started working with a large number of schools across the city. And I found that children were enjoying our sessions, and we kept telling teachers to come in and observe. And we found that teachers were happy to, allow us to do whatever we were doing with newspapers in the classroom. And I feel this is a rapid fire, so I could go on and on, so I better stop. So I think it's important to remember that when you move from a teacher to a trainer, it is constantly you're educating yourself. It's inspiring. It's constantly challenging. It's not easy work. The work we do is very hard. And I think the fact that my work is so based in the classroom, and the Teacher Foundation's work is so linked to what the teachers experience and live in the classroom with all of you as students, I think that's what makes it so interesting and inspiring for us, as well as it's challenging, no question about it. I don't even know if I've answered your question, but over to you.
Ma'am, your words are like a burst of inspiration. Simply amazing. So now for the next one. How do you incorporate your strengths into your teaching and training methods?
I think this is, I liked this question really, because I think it's important to bring your whole person into a profession like teaching. A lot of times people have asked, how do what's your work-life balance? How do you separate work from home? And you can't. In a job like teaching, who you are as a person is who you are as a teacher. So you have to bring in all the activities that bring you joy, whether it is into teaching and or training. And they eventually become your strengths. For me, it's working with people, especially teachers and children. I still occasionally work with children to show teachers how to work with children, and I still love it. And it's for me, it's music, reading, traveling, appreciating art. All of this I used to bring into my classroom teaching when I was an active teacher in the classroom. And I think we need to do that, because then children see you as an authentic and interesting individual rather than just a teacher of a subject. Yeah.
Now,
So,
that's the kind of inspiration that fuels positive change. Truly wonderful. I now have a bonus question for you. Whom do you consider as a role model for your success?
I have had many role models at a personal level as well as a professional level. But I think my first and earliest role model was my father. He was a huge role model in terms of the person he was. He was a doctor in the army, and he was absolutely dedicated to his medical profession and truly humane and an excellent physician. After 25 years of his death, which was just recently, he still remembered and felicitated in his medical fraternity. And I think that's truly inspiring. That's an amazing legacy he's left. But I think more, if people knew, those who knew him, and including acquaintances and all, it was his wit, warmth that endeared him. And I think being able to see the funny side of even a very deadly serious profession like medicine and education, I think that's been my constant North Star.
Ma'am, your story is a testament to the power of resilience and determination. Your words are like a breath of fresh air. Truly inspiring and beautiful. Thank you. Now, I
Thank
will hand
you.
it over to my friend Nandana. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nandana Menon Srivastava and will be asking Mr. Rahul Chaudhary some rapid fire questions. So, sir, my first question for you is, as a two-time startup founder with ventures ranging from fintech to fresh produce, how have these experiences helped you further in your partnerships?
That's a very interesting question. Okay, in the spirit of rapid fire, two things. One is it's really helped me fine-tune my empathy. And the second is it's helped me try to figure out the value of any partnership. I think given the wide range of people I worked with, starting from people who earn 7,000 rupees a month to like 7 million a month, what it's given me is that breadth of understanding across the board. So for me, it becomes very important to understand where the other person is coming from and how to engage with them accordingly. So that can only come through empathy. Only when you try to understand where the other person's coming from can you put anything into practice yourself, is a strong belief. And the second one about the value of any partnership, on the face of it, so I'm a very half glass half full kind of a person. Everything I feel is hopeful. But it's very important to be objective about any interaction you make, especially when it comes to professional partnerships. So to understand the true value that this will bring out, both for the other entity, for myself, and for society as a whole, becomes quite important to articulate. And my startups have really helped me do that.
That was quite knowledgeable, sir. For my next question, could you mention some challenges you have faced while climbing up the ladder?
Challenges, there have been many and continue to be, but I don't subscribe to the idea of a ladder per se. I think my career path has been so long and rather winding that it's just been at one level across like a toy train almost, right? So I've had the privilege of choosing a very unique career path, so to say, where I've dabbled between industries, functions, and roles. And of course, I've found it very challenging on many occasions. The one thing that I lacked in those moments was self-belief, whether it was in response to losing a big deal or on the verge of going broke, or having gone broke, or having lost out on something that seemed like an absolute sure thing. To put into your perspective, maybe you do really well in an exam and you score 1 mark less, that could break you. So those are the occasions where I feel I lack self-belief. But the moment I realize that and I accept that, and then I get back some modicum of self-belief, things start falling in place and we start moving again.
That was quite an inspirational answer, sir. For my next question, which is a very interesting one, which are the books that have inspired you and shaped your journey as an entrepreneur?
Lovely. So I'll just quickly show you my books here. Can't read any of those, but okay. So there have been a whole range of them, of course, and I'll stick to the ones that are related to entrepreneurship, maybe, or business, or growth. So of course, there's the common ones like 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal. You've got Screw It, Just Do It by Sir Richard Branson. You've got The Power of Broke by Damon John, who's also on Shark Tank, one of the sharks there. But my favorite always has been, I mean, for the last few years since it came out, Leading by Sir Alex Ferguson. I mean, he was the legendary coach of Manchester United, and he's taken them to heights that most other clubs in the football clubs in the world have not seen. And I'll quickly quote one line from the book that I love, and it's actually on the sleeve of the book also. I think it says, so it's his quote. He says, "My job was to make everyone understand that the impossible was possible. That is the difference between leadership and management."
Right, so thank you for your recommendation. I'm sure we will all add this to our reading list. Moving on, what advice would you like to give to young students who are budding entrepreneurs to build successful partnerships in the educational sector?
Great question. So I think an entrepreneur is not limited by the task, or so it's not just in education, but this is more general advice to entrepreneurs who are listening in here. Now, what has worked for me has been a massive eagerness to fail, but which is only matched by an even deeper eagerness to succeed. So I think what I've realized over the years is that till I don't do everything I need to, and I don't fail like so many times, I've just not found the right way to succeed. Some of us could have beginner's luck, or some of us could just have been born lucky or whatever, but I've just not seen that work. In the process, I've learned so many things, and that for me is the most important aspect of growing. So entrepreneurship is all about, seeking growth, even if it is at your own cost. If this is very painful, right? Growing up is painful. And I mean, I hope it's not for you, but growing up in an entrepreneurial manner is generally painful. So that, I think, is what's really helped me, and I'd love for you guys to also take that forward.
So an advice that all can follow. That was a very fruitful insight for all budding entrepreneurs here. For our last question, launching something new is always challenging. Could you share a key mantra that you have followed while facing new challenges?
Tough question. I think it's the ability to always challenge what you know. So I think what that does is it helps me improvise very quickly. I pivot very quickly because of that. So it's not like I know everything, I'm perfect. No, that's never been the case. It's always been, okay, I've come this far. There are more things yet to learn. How do I learn them? How do I quickly change my way of thinking? How do I improvise? So that willingness to improvise has been absolutely key for me. And this includes, things like the willingness to learn new skills, to gain new perspectives, to break things down and rebuild them differently. Yeah.
So I'm sure all of us will find this extremely helpful. Thank you so much, sir. I have personally enjoyed questioning you and hope you were equally thrilled answering my questions.
Absolutely.
Thank
you so much, Nandana.
Thank you, sir. With that, our exciting rapid fire round comes to an end. This is Nandana signing off. Over to Shelly, ma'am.
Thank you, Nandana. Now, ma'am and sir, interacting throughout this hour was indeed a pleasure. We would have extended this talk for some more time, but time is a challenge for us. So, On behalf of the organizing committee, Delhi Public School, Bangalore East, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Ms. Maya Menon and Mr. Rahul Chaudhary for presenting this talk show, and your passion and enthusiasm actually added a vibrant and captivating dimension to the event, making it a resounding success. First and foremost, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to our management, our principal ma'am, Dr. Manila Carvalho, and our vice principal ma'am, Ms. Preeti Suta, for providing a platform where students and teachers can benefit. I also want to thank the parents who tirelessly support and encourage their children throughout. Lastly, I thank Ms. Shanti and Ms. Aparna for the technical support and Sioni ma'am for the constant support and guidance. This talk show on training for excellence would not have been possible without your collective support and involvement. We hope this event has provided enough food for thought for our audience tonight. Thank you so much, ma'am, Maya Menon, ma'am, and Rahul Chaudhary, sir, for giving us valuable insights. Thank you all.